Did you know there are countries Americans can't visit anymore in 2025? It's true. While we often think about travel as a chance to escape reality, the truth is, sometimes reality has other plans. In this video, we're diving headfirst into a world of geopolitical complexities, exploring 10 countries that have, shall we say, politely uninvited American travelers. From political standoffs that would make a schoolyard squabble look civilized to safety concerns that make a dark alley seem like Disneyland, we're about to unpack why your dream vacation might just be a no-go. So buckle up, grab your passport, and maybe a helmet. You'll see why later. And let's get started. Let's kick things off with a country that needs no introduction, mostly because they'd rather you not have one: North Korea. This is a nation that makes Willy Wonka's factory look like an open house. The reasons for the travel ban are about as subtle as a fireworks display in a library. At the heart of it is a decades-long political standoff with the US that makes a staring contest between toddlers seem like a diplomatic summit. Add to that a human rights record that would make even the most hardened dictator blush, and you've got yourself a recipe for a travel ban that's about as surprising as a bear relieving itself in the woods. Next up, we're traveling to Iran, a nation with a history as rich and complex as 1001 Arabian Nights tale. Now, while Iran isn't completely off limits, getting in as an American is about as easy as finding a sober Irishman on St. Patrick's Day. Technically possible, but you're gonna need a lot of luck. The US and Iran have been locked in a diplomatic stalemate for decades, a tense standoff fueled by mistrust and political maneuvering. The result? Travel restrictions that make getting a visa feel like winning the lottery. And even if you do manage to navigate that bureaucratic maze, you'll be subject to strict monitoring during your visit. Our next destination takes us to Syria, a nation tragically entangled in a devastating civil war. To put it bluntly, traveling to Syria right now is about as advisable as challenging a honey badger to a tickle fight. It's just a bad idea. The ongoing conflict has turned the country into a highly volatile and dangerous environment. We're talking widespread violence, kidnappings, and bombings. This isn't a place for your casual sightseeing or attempts at finding yourself, unless, of course, finding yourself involves suddenly needing to duck and cover. Chapter 4. The Venezuelan Vexation, Venezuela. Let's move on to Venezuela, a country grappling with a political and economic crisis so severe it would make a Greek tragedy seem like a lighthearted sitcom. The United States government strongly advises against traveling to Venezuela, and frankly, they're not being dramatic. Political instability, hyperinflation, shortages of basic goods, and a crumbling infrastructure have turned this once thriving nation into a shadow of its former self. Add to that the risk of crime, violence, and arbitrary detentions, and you've got a cocktail of chaos that's best observed from a safe distance. Chapter 5. Yemen, where even angels fear to tread. Our next stop takes us to Yemen, a nation ravaged by a brutal civil war that's about as fun as a root canal without anesthesia. Needless to say, the United States government advises against all travel to Yemen. The conflict has plunged the country into a humanitarian catastrophe, with widespread violence, famine, and disease. To make matters worse, Yemen has become a hotbed for terrorist groups, making it about as safe as a mosh pit at a death metal concert. Chapter 6. Libya, a desert of danger. Our journey continues in Libya, a nation grappling with political instability and armed conflict that makes a playground squabble look like a tea party. The United States government, with good reason, advises against all travel to Libya. Following the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi, Libya descended into chaos, becoming a battleground for rival militias and a haven for extremist groups. This is not the place to work on your tan or sample local cuisine. This is a place where even the most seasoned war correspondents think twice before venturing. Chapter 7. Somalia, Pirates, and Peril. Next, we find ourselves in Somalia, a nation synonymous with piracy, famine, and conflict. It's a place where even the bravest souls might think twice before booking a one-way ticket. For years, Somalia has been plagued by a brutal civil war, a lack of effective governance, and the ever-present threat of terrorism. Throw in the added bonus of piracy off the coast, and you've got yourself an adventure that's best left to the realms of action movies. Chapter 8: Afghanistan, a country in crisis. Our journey takes us to Afghanistan, a nation grappling with the aftermath of decades of conflict and the recent return of the Taliban to power. The US government, in a move that surprises absolutely no one, strongly advises against all travel to Afghanistan. The security situation in Afghanistan remains highly volatile, with the Taliban's grip on power tightening and the potential for violence ever present. The country is facing a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions, with widespread poverty, food shortages, and a healthcare system on the brink of collapse. Chapter 9: Iraq, Scars of War. Our next stop takes us to Iraq, a nation still bearing the scars of years of war and political instability. While the situation has improved somewhat in recent years, Iraq remains a high-risk destination for travelers, particularly Americans. The threat of terrorism remains a serious concern, with groups like ISIS still active in the country. Kidnappings, bombings, and sectarian violence are all too common, making Iraq a place where personal safety is far from guaranteed. Chapter 10: Sudan, a political powder keg. Our final stop takes us to Sudan, a nation grappling with political turmoil and a humanitarian crisis that's about as far from a vacation brochure as you can get. The US government, for reasons that should be abundantly clear by now, advises against all travel to Sudan. Following a military coup in 2021, Sudan has been plunged into a state of political uncertainty and unrest. The country is facing a humanitarian crisis, with millions in need of assistance and a healthcare system struggling to cope. So, there you have it, 10 countries where your American passport won't get you much more than a concerned glance and a firm no entry stamp. The world can be a beautiful, messy, and sometimes downright dangerous place. And while the travel bug might bite, it's always best to do your research and exercise caution, especially when venturing into regions grappling with political turmoil or safety concerns. Stay informed and stay safe. Subscribe for more updates on global travel restrictions.